Hello, scholars, and welcome back to weeks 9 and 10 of Applying Philosophy to Modern Global Issues. I hope you got a chance to catch your breath last week, and I want to thank you for your hard work and creative contributions over the last 8 weeks to all of our discussions, reflections, and projects. For the final 6 weeks of the course, we'll be turning to project-based assignments based on issues which impact us in our home cities but also reverberate around the world: the war on drugs and the immigration crisis. For this upcoming 2-week unit, you'll be working with a classmate to compare and contrast the ways that criminal justice is implemented in the poorer neighborhoods of your communities. During this unit, we'll also be trying to do something new. To add extra ethos or credibility to your projects, you need to locate and interview an expert on the topic you choose for your urban studies project. This person could be a member of your school community, a friend of your family who's a lawyer or a social worker, or someone you contact and arrange to meet via the internet. So here we go. Since the 1970s, America has been fighting a war on drugs, with aggressive legal and policing strategies implemented during the 1980s and 90s. During the Reagan and Clinton presidencies, Congress passed stern 3 strikes and you're out laws, which made the possession or distribution of drugs into felonies. Get convicted of 3 felonies and you're going to prison for a long, long time. Although drugs still proliferate in our society today, levels of violent crime in America did decline during the 1990s and 2000s. But this decline has been accompanied by a vast rise in the number of people, particularly African American men, incarcerated in our prisons. The raw numbers are startling. Just look at the graph below. The number of people in prison has risen from about 500,000 in 1980 to over 2.2 million today, a 400% increase. The incarceration rate in America has grown to over 700 per 100,000 people, and that leads the nations of the developed world by a huge margin. And of the 2.2 million people in our prisons today, nearly half are African American. In the poorer sections of most of our cities, where the economy has been hit hardest by the flight of blue-collar jobs overseas due to globalization, the drug trade has flourished, and African American men have been prosecuted and convicted of drug-related crimes in huge numbers. By some estimates, 1 in every 3 African American men will serve time in prison at some point in his life. The policing strategies used to combat the drug problem in America have led to a spate of instances of police brutality and the use of lethal force against African American men, from Ferguson to Detroit to New York City, to North Charleston, to Baltimore. Communities have been rocked by the deaths of African Americans at the hands of police. In my hometown, Baltimore, the death of Freddie Gray in police custody sparked riots across the city in late April of 2015. Since that time, an epidemic of drug-related violence has afflicted our city. At the same time, an epidemic of opioid abuse has reached staggering levels in the past few years. Fueled by the overprescription by doctors of addictive painkillers for the past 20 years, the number of drug overdose death has skyrocketed. Last year, over 80,000 Americans died from drug overdoses. So, what is to be done about the current state of crime and punishment in America? What is to be done about crime and punishment in your own hometown? Politicians from across the political spectrum have called for reform of our drug laws, reduction of the number of nonviolent drug-related convicts in our prison, and overall reforms of the prison system. During this unit, we will examine the complex problems which have led to the situation today. We'll consider the consequences of the war on drugs in each of our own local communities. We'll make recommendations about ways to reform our approach to the drug problem and to the prison system itself. How can philosophy help us achieve those goals? Too often, debate about controversial topics arouses passions, which inflame the conversation and force people with differing views to default to partisan positions. That is where a philosophical approach can help. To inform our discussion of crime and punishment in America, we'll study the philosophical foundations of our current justice system. How and why do we determine who should be punished? What should be the purpose of incarceration? How do we assimilate criminals who have served their time back into the general population? So, you'll do your own research into the relationship of law enforcement with minority communities in your own hometown, and then present your findings to the class. You'll compare your findings with a partner, a classmate from a different city, and draw conclusions. Please choose your partner for this project by this coming Thursday, and let me know about the topic and whom you'll be working with. For this project, you should also plan to interview some person who has expertise on the topic you and your partner have chosen. And please pay close attention to my directions about how to set up and conduct an interview on the following pages. To get started, please watch the following TED Talks by Alice Goffman and Michelle Alexander. Alice Goffman is a professor of sociology at the University of Wisconsin. She wrote On the Run in 2014, a fascinating study of the relationship between police and African American young men in a rough neighborhood of Philadelphia during the years 2010 through 2012. Michelle Alexander is a civil rights lawyer and recent professor at Stanford University, who's the author of The New Jim Crow, written in 2011, an excoriating expose of the mass incarceration of African Americans during the war on drugs. Finally, please move on to the warm-up exercise, a graded discussion of the podcast series Out of the Blocks, which explores the rich diversity of experiences possible in the contemporary city. In this case, the city of Baltimore, my hometown. This assignment should remind us of our overall goal, which is to create healthy neighborhoods where diverse peoples respect each other and connect authentically. That's it for now. I look forward to seeing your responses online, and be in touch soon.